Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of the Blackbird Grimoire. Welcome to the daily forecast for Tuesday, May 14th, 2024. Good morning and happy Mars Day to you. We have a waxing crescent moon. We are in Taurus season, the Celtic Tree month of Hawthorn, Beaver season, and Pluto retrograde. In today's astrology, the sun is in Taurus, fixed earth, representing practicality. The moon is first quarter Leo, fixed fire, representing enthusiasm. Mercury is in Aries, cardinal fire, representing alertness. Venus is in Taurus, fixed earth, representing artistry. Mars is in Aries, cardinal fire, representing initiative. Jupiter is in Taurus, fixed earth, representing practicality. Saturn is in Pisces, mutable water, representing imagination. Uranus is in Taurus, fixed earth, representing practicality. Neptune is in Pisces, mutable water, representing imagination. Pluto is in retrograde Aquarius, fixed air, representing the need to examine intentions. And remember our Pluto retrograde mantra: reflect, heal, evolve. For the waxing crescent, remember to plan, brainstorm, and create. And with the Leo moon, do lend, do create, do celebrate. Don't linger in depressing environments. Don't associate with unappreciative people, and don't be too vain. Now, on this day of Mars, we remember that Mars is in the cardinal fire sign of Aries, and the moon is in the fixed fire sign of Leo. The Aries energy will propel our vision forward, and the Leo energy will see the job through to the end. You might find yourself with tunnel vision today because it's all very goal-oriented, must get this thing done. So choose your goals very wisely. Our tarot card for today is the Five of Pentacles. A little bit depressing because it does represent poverty, having a crisis of the soul, and a depletion of resources, be they material, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And it might be a little bit of a mental earthquake for people to think about themselves as being depleted of resources, because people tend to take a very materialistic spin on this. And I understand why. It's a suit of pentacles. It's about earthly pursuits and material objects and all that. So it's not completely out of line, but those aren't the only resources that we have at our disposal. Our mental resources, sometimes called our bandwidth, the emotional resources that we have, the limitations of what our heart can take at any given time, and of course our spiritual resources. These things can be in a state of lack as well, and they can be a lot more serious than a material lack of wealth, because at least with material things, we ultimately know what we need to do. We need to get to work. We need to earn money so that we can exchange it for goods and services that we need, and, hopefully do well enough to where we can get some of the things we want as well. That we understand the necessary process by which material lack can be alleviated, even if it can be a very difficult road to ultimately see that done. But replenishing yourself mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, that's a lot more challenging. We don't always see these things, and we can't always recognize the shifts within our soul and that manifest into our behaviors that might betray that we're lacking in these in some fashion. So it does seem like a lot of us right now are going through a great deal. You hear people talking about, mental health crises. You see people floundering with their spiritual beliefs. And I actually find this a bit less so within pagan circles. But then all of us are so accustomed to being seekers, is that if we're feeling ourselves a bit unsteady, we're very well familiar, because we never really stop the process of looking and seeking and reflecting and starting to draw conclusions and to try things out to see if we can make things a bit better. But for our neighbors who are outside of our faith, it's a lot more serious. They are desperately looking for answers. A lot of them do not understand why their faith cannot give them the sense of satisfaction that they're really actually needing, because they don't understand that a lot of the mainstream faith is actually in opposition to human nature, in opposition to the reality in which we are in, and in some ways in opposition to natural law itself, because the purpose of life is not how soon can you escape it, and have you done enough sufficiently good deeds to warrant an everlasting uh, afterlife of goodness and joy and happiness and all this and all that. That's not really what life is about. Life is about what we are doing in each stage of our existence, from all of our various life stages when we're in corporeal form, and when we are in just our energy forms as souls, when we're in between incarnations. It would not surprise me a bit if we got to that other side and found that there are also stages of development that we go through there. And it's all about, are we making the most of these times, whatever stage we happen to find ourselves in? Are we recognizing its gifts as well as acknowledging some of its challenges? That is more so of the pagan mindset. What are you doing here and how are you enriching it? Are you rising to the occasion? And I think sometimes we don't realize how fortunate we really are, because we don't have any of that mental static that can be found from, let's face it, many monotheistic religions that tend to keep people a little bit more lost and a little bit more stuck, because they're operating on a false premise. They're operating on the idea of escape, whether it's escape from punishment or escape from the material form of the flesh. They're trying to escape, and life isn't about escape. Life is about facing it. Today's Celtic Triad reads, three littles which make great profit and the time. Little of eating and drinking, little of care, and little of tongue. So once again, we're talking about moderation. And of course, if we're moderate in eating and drinking habits, that does promote all around better health. If we are rejecting undue worry, that does improve the state of our nerves. And also that renews our ability to adapt as needed to challenges, to where it's not shattering us emotionally. It's not immediately driving us down to the rock bottom of our souls. We're just saying, oh, that happened, so I'm going to adapt. You move past the emotional crisis and you get on with the thing. And so in order to do that, it does require having the self-discipline to not allow yourself to fret about every single thing possible. And then people who listen more than they speak tend to learn more and gain more in wisdom. And if you say, Brigantia, you talk all the time on your channel. Yes, yes, I do. And it worries me. It worries me when perhaps there are a lot of times when I should be doing a lot more listening. But at this time, I am absolutely compelled to carry on with my work of this. And, when I do get my comeuppance for whatever I should have listened to earlier but didn't at the time, well, I guess there's a high probability that everyone gets to enjoy watching me have that comeuppance. It's just the nature of the beast. Today's magical intention is courage. The color is scarlet. The plant is the pepper. The animal is the wolf. And the crystal is garnet. So, how do you bolster your courage when insecurities are preying at your heart? Because there's no shortage of things out there that you could choose to have anxiety about. So, how do you beat that back? How are you summoning your courage from the depths of your soul when you really need it? That could be a very helpful thing to identify, especially as we are going ahead into the coming years, when things could have every potential to be even more challenging than they are right now. Now, for today's pagan practice suggestions, you might honor a war deity, meditate on the differences between masculine conflict and feminine conflict. And what I mean by that is, how do men handle conflict amongst themselves versus how do women handle conflict amongst themselves? It's my observation that past a certain point, men tend to settle their differences physically, because if they're going to destroy something, they tend to destroy it physically. Whereas with women, it's a lot more psychological warfare. Why would I, destroy something outright and physically when I could slowly tear it down and watch it deteriorate from the inside out? When it comes to masculine destruction, it does seem to be more so about getting the job done. If you take my meaning, just making sure that whatever threat is no longer a threat ever again. Whereas with women, it does seem to be a little bit more like a cat playing with a mouse, something that's just a hair more sadistic. We're wanting to watch the suffering almost. So being aware of that, and also if you personally, whether you're a man or a woman watching this, if you tend to be more, take the more masculine route or the more feminine route, being aware of that, I think that is the first step to actually modifying your behavior to make sure that you're not engaging in needless conflict, and that you're also, if you are in a conflict, that you're exercising self-control and you're making decisions about how you're handling it, rather than being taken over by the current of your own inner passions. So, another thing you might contemplate is how you might improve in self defense. I was thinking primarily physical self defense because yeah, it's sad to see, it's horrible, but we do see a lot more civil unrest in the past couple of years than we have perhaps when we were growing up. And like I've said to many people before, there comes a point where it doesn't really matter how sad it is. It doesn't matter how much we don't want this to be the case. The only thing that matters is how we are meeting that particular challenge. So doing what we can to improve in this area, that is something that we can do to safeguard ourselves. If you feel particularly cranky today, go outside. There's nothing like getting outside and just escaping to the natural world, at least for a little while, to help soothe your ruffled feathers. And then you might also read a chapter from The Art of War. There's a lot of insights about how to manage conflict in that. And it's while you can take the literalist interpretation of it, with great armies coming to face one another, you can also take from it more principled stances of, okay, if all conflict is essentially operating in this particular way, even though I might be in a verbal conflict with someone, how can I better handle that? Because a lot of Sun Tzu's philosophy was that if you are having to engage in warfare, then there's already been a lot of failures, because the goal is to prevent it from getting to that state to begin with. But if you are in that state, then let's suck as little as possible and bring the matter to a close as quickly as possible. Uh, there's a lot of people who would do well to study Sun Tzu's tactics, and then maybe we wouldn't have all these endless wars we see everywhere. Now for our journal, which is a bit more uplifting, thing to contemplate than what we just discussed, is it's an invitation to think about how is a pagan marriage different from the concept of marriage in other faiths, because we do have a different worldview. We do have a different kind of equilibrium between husbands and wives, and thinking about that, appreciating the differences and how perhaps we are avoiding some problems that people in other faiths might be more likely to find themselves in. I think that could be very encouraging us to be reassured about our own life choices, but also it can be a reminder that in our own personal relationships, as far as we are able to try to set an example of saying, because I am who I am, because I have this faith, because my husband and I have this way of how we think marriage should go, we are working towards that goal together, as opposed to, letting things fall apart or falling into toxic patterns. So that does it for today. Let me know what you thought of all of this in the comments below, or email me at brigantiablackbird@protonmail.com. But that'll do it for today. Bye.